He goes through 2, 3 of them, while picking her up in his arms. In the middle of it all, he still manages to stop, turn, and tell her that he'll never let her die. But even then, there are monsters on all sides and he activates life energy again. Haru can only see flashes of punches flying, knees slamming, fists connecting, a blur of movement while she yells his name as he tears through the creatures, lightning flaring all around. When everything ends, a legion of cores lies on the ground. Louis completely gasping for air and exhausted and collapses. But right then, he hears footsteps. Another one is coming. Haru freezes and Blue, no matter how much he wants to move, has no strength left. He passes out and sees himself back in the room with his father telling him that he had a heart that reminded him of his mother. No matter how many times he told her to stay away, her kind heart would always get hurt. That was exactly one of the reasons why he couldn't let the boy go to the surface. He didn't want to go through all that pain again, but the boy could keep pushing to get stronger. Blue gets up and the monster hits him, smashing rocks into his body. His father says he had the chance to become stronger than he ever was. Rocks hit his face, but even bleeding, he keeps moving forward. In a last attempt, life energy activates once more. His father says he could become strong enough to stick to any convictions he chose. And with that man, the ground explodes, right as the creature is coming to smash in with a palm strike. Face to face, Blue doesn't flinch and tears open a crater in the monster's chest. Holding the creature's core, he remembers what his father once said. This was their potential, though to care the blood of the blue flame. Meanwhile, Hoojin is asking Mohawk how he knows where the monster's weak point is. He answers, he can see it. Those guys ran some tests on him, and eventually he started to understand what this life force thing really was. Just like Blue said, it's a weird energy that runs through everyone's body. Another creature comes charging in, but now look at Mohawk, man. He slides past it and says, I'm coming in from below, and comes in with a bat strike. But Hoojin notices that he's not actually aiming for the core, even though he knows exactly where it is. Mohawk remembers that this is the guy who killed his blonde girl. He says there's no way he's letting him die that easily, not a chance. Slash across the chest, sidestep, and another hit. Hoojin can't believe it. The guy's moving like he doesn't fear anything the monster throws at him. The guy was clearly more beast than man, but his methods were totally reckless. Hoojin thinks about helping, but Mohawk just says, stay where you are, don't come any closer. He's the one who's gonna settle this man. Yeah, but even with all this badass attitude, he gets stomped in the chest and thrown into the wall. When Hoojin's about to curse this idiot, how did the smoke Mohawk appears and says, is that really all you've got? Meanwhile, back with Blue, he had forgotten those memories. Now he's starting to realize that his father somehow always knew he'd end up on the surface. And that's why he always warned him not to get close to humans. When he doesn't understand is why his father was so afraid of society or what they had done to him. Horror approaches calling out to him, but our boy can't move a muscle. Then he remembers his father saying, he had already explained why he was put in that basement. The reason was simple. So he couldn't survive the apocalypse, but there was something he hadn't said yet. That day his father made a genuine confession and Blue hadn't been asleep. His father said, he always believed the boy would never believe it. That day Blue didn't even fully understand what his father was saying, but he was curious. And that's when he said, he wasn't trying to protect Blue from the apocalypse. In truth, he was trying to protect him from humans. The moment his existence was noticed, everyone would come after him. Because inside him, there was something that Blue didn't hear, man. That last part of the memory somehow seemed like it had been ripped away from him. And now lying on the ground, he's wondering what this strange thirst is. It was like his life was withering away. He looks to the side and sees that huge core from the monster man. Slowly he approaches and touches it with his finger. In the blink of an eye, he appears in another place with a creature walking toward him. The creature stretches out its hand and it begins to surround him and merge with his body. And in that moment, he hears his heart's voice calling for him to wake up. When he opens his eyes, bam, there's an attack right next to his head. The problem is, it's too close and there's no way to dodge. But before he even has to do anything, a suitcase smacks the creature and somehow the core gates hit Man. Jian actually did something for the group finally. Meanwhile, Mohawk and Gugin are still trying to hold it together. The numbers weren't going down and they were starting to reach their limit. And obviously, since they weren't like Blue, they had to watch each of his backs right Man. Their reaction speed was way slower. Already knowing they'd have to get out of there before things got worse, Gugin turns to Mohawk and says, "It's time, Man." So if the two of them start running, dodging around some rocks toward the only exit there was. But halfway through, when Gugin looks back, Mohawk had been grabbed by two monsters. He smiles at Gugin and says he doesn't want to see him die like everyone else. So he better run. Of course, Gugin asks why he's going so far like this. And Mohawk just replies, "Don't need a reason, Man, we're friends." That however only makes Gugin even angrier, who's wondering why this idiot is putting his life on the line just because they're friends. The poor guy is going crazy. Everyone around him was a complete idiot. But all Mohawk guy was there holding on the end of the attacks passed over and went toward Gugin. He told him to be careful and Man at that moment, Gugin could see the possibility of him surviving. He just had to abandon the Mohawk guy there and sneak out through the side and he would definitely come out alive. But he knows that if it were Blue, he wouldn't follow the path of possibility. He would create his own path. He had already seen him do that many times when they were fighting. And deep down he could only keep watching. And now Man, he wonders how long he's going to keep following only the path of what was possible. When his sister was being consumed, he exhausted all the possibilities he could think of, which makes him wonder. And when the only path he can see leads to tragedy, did he really have no choice but to follow it? Blood is already coming out of his nose, Man, and at that moment he almost takes a kick but manages to defend and throw himself back. And the poor guy can't stop thinking, Man, if he had Blue's power, he'd be able to create his own possibilities. The Mohawk guy wants to know why he still hasn't run away. Meanwhile, Gugin, surrounded by creatures, keeps repeating to himself that if he were Blue, he were Blue. But things weren't that easy, folks. He falls to his knees realizing that he was different from that boy. There was no way he could create an opportunity like that. Then he starts to turn around, saying that the only thing he can do is follow the path of possibilities. However, when the decision had already been made, Man, on the back of one of the creatures, the bat hits. Even trapped, the Mohawk guy was still helping. Gugin thought that was the only way for him to survive. And then he starts wondering exactly why he wants to stay alive. Since when and why was he trying so hard not to die? At that moment, his sister appears on his back and says that he promised. He said he would avenge her and would kill all the monsters. Suddenly, Gugin stops and says he had forgotten. Now he remembers why he had to keep living. And then he turns to Peace, saying that he's going to live to kill all of them. If he wasn't capable yet, the only option was to get stronger and stronger. He was going to find a way out of this, even if it seemed almost impossible to see a solution. He kept trying dozens and hundreds of times, saying that even if he had to think thousands, he wouldn't give up. That, and he remembers Blue's moves and starts to replicate them. In the very next second though, that he already starts to notice that the sensation of energy coming from Blue was different from his. The life force coming out of his body was the same one he had felt coming from that monster. Meanwhile, the Mohawk guy is there, Man, agonizing, not knowing why he still hasn't run. At that moment, Gugin stretches out his hands and the creatures start coming toward him. He remembers that Blue said he had a concentrate energy at the tip of his finger. The arm starts heating up and he wonders if that was the right feeling or if he really had to bring all the energy to a single point. This time though, something was different and the effect was much sharper. It keeps repeating to himself that he had to get strong to kill that creature and get revenge. At that moment, Man, there were already two face to face with him. And my God, Gugin froze again, my boy. Let's kill those creatures, Man. Oh my God, good thing his sister shows up again to give that motivation to the boy, Man. She held his hand and at that moment, the energy started to